Going to try to save you a little bit of money today. I've got a Pentair multi-speed or variable speed pool pump, and when I came out today the pool pump wasn't running. When I opened up the control panel, my LED display was full of moisture and the pump would not turn on and run, so I thought it was fried. Now my lid was closed, my sprinklers don't hit it, I've got it kind of blocked in here, no heavy rain, so I'm not sure how the water got in it, but I did fix it. I'm going to show you how I did it. First thing you want to do is turn off the power. This is 240 volts, and when you pull this top piece off, they are exposed, so you can kill yourself. So make sure you turn off the power before you do anything. The next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to take these 4 screws out of here. So there's 4 screws on the corner. They don't come all the way out. They're kind of set in there, so once you get them loose, they don't fall out. You can use a hex driver if you want. It's got a Phillips in the middle. You can even do a flathead if you want to. Now before you lift that up off there, let me move the camera. So when you lift this up off here, you'll see there's a wiring harness on the side. There's a little tab on here, and I can't really show you from this angle. Pushing on the tab, the wire comes off. Now I've already cut mine loose, but also there's a little clip right here on the side with a little zip tie in it. You can cut this off if you want to, or you can pull this out of here. I just nipped mine off so I could get to the wire. And again, make sure your power's off, because that's where your 120 or 220 hooks up. That's hot, and it can kill you. Okay, again, when I first did this, my display here had moisture in it, so it looked like it actually gotten wet. I'm not sure how it got wet. The lid was closed on it, unless it wasn't closed all the way. Somehow I ended up with water inside of this unit though. When I took this off originally, as soon as I flipped this over, the entire cover was just soaking wet on the inside. So I figured, well, it's got to be water underneath here. Now the only place there's a seal is under this unit right here. So to get this out, what you need to do, pull your cap off for your external controller. This nut comes off. Once the nut comes off, you push this through. This little cap will come off that covers the connector. So you'll need a Torx bit for this next part. This is a T20. And basically remove these screws. These will fall out, unlike the screws that hold the panel to the pump itself. So when you tip them over, don't drop them all over the place. Once you get those loose, this control panel will lift out of here. It does come out in little pieces, so make sure you don't drop any of them. Just pull it out carefully. There's a seal that goes around the pump, or around the controller. Now when I first took this off of mine, I can actually see a gap, and I don't know if you can see it on the camera or not, but I can see a place where the control board was hitting here. It wasn't hitting here. It wasn't hitting here, it was hitting here. So it doesn't look like this seal was put in properly from the factory, which is probably why I got moisture in them. This side here, I can see a nice even bead, so it actually was seated on this side really good, but it definitely wasn't seated properly. So after you pull this piece off here, there's a couple little grommets on the side here and here. Those just pop up out of there, and this board will lift up. And when you lift up on this board, you got to be careful. Don't knock anything off. Don't break any resistors, transistors, anything off here. Again, same on this. When I pulled this up, this board was soaking wet. There was water drops all over it. Again, it almost looked like the pump was underwater. So I took my wife's hair dryer, and I basically just put it on low heat and let this dry off until it was completely dry. I took a little small wire brush, or a nylon brush, cleaned all my contact points off here. I lifted the wiring housing up, made sure I blew air underneath here to get this all dried out. And then when I turned this over, I turned it up and I noticed there was actually a pool of water in the LCD itself. So Allen wrench here, basically you can lift this part off of here. You take these 4 Allen screws out. Do this here, I'm not sure if I'll get it on camera. Yep. Sorry, talking to myself. I don't have a nut driver small enough to go in my impactor. I would use it. probably going to fast forward through this section. Now when you go to lift this board up, the board actually plugs in right here. I did not have to take mine off all the way. But there's some, it looks like a rubber or sealant right here that keeps it from getting water in here. Again, I had water up in here. I'm not sure how. So I basically dried all this out. Same thing. I took the dryer to it for a little while, let it dry out really good. Dried off my LCD display. And then I actually just put it back in there real gentle. You'll see there's like little contact points up here. If this doesn't line up properly, the contacts won't make contact and the board won't work. So I'm going to line those back up. I'm going to put my screws back in. And I'm going to fast forward through that again. When you tighten this up, you don't want to over tighten it, and you want to go from corner to corner. So do 2 or 3 turns on one screw, go to the other corner. A couple turns, go to the other corner. So the next thing I want to do is put my board back in. So my wires, I didn't really slide the grommets down, so they should line back up where they need to. So I'm going to slide my grommet in, slide my grommet in. And then put my board back on it. Now this gasket, I'm debating whether to put a little bit of sealant around it, just because I don't want to get sealant all over that, but I don't want to get water in here again. I'm not going to do it this time, but if I get water in here again, I'm going to keep an eye on it for the next few days. It could have just been loose, not tightened properly. But this goes back up in here. Make sure it sits in there properly. And then your board will just fold back up in place. This is easier if it's laying down and not leaning up against the wall. Once I get it started, just hand tighten these screws so it doesn't move on me. When you tighten these up, I'm going to use my impact. I suggest use a screwdriver. You just want to snug these up again, just like you did the display panel. I'm just going until it stops. And you put them on kind of like you would a tire, and you go back and forth with it. Keep from crushing your gasket. Put my wiring harness back on the top here. This is probably optional, but since it was there, I'll put it back anyhow. This wire goes back through this hole. And what I did learn is that this cap has actually got a groove in it right here. I'm not sure again if you can see it on the camera or not. If not, when you're looking at your part, make sure your cap fits on there before you put this piece on. So it goes on that way. So I'm going to put my loop in that direction. Put my nut back on. Cap back on, and we're ready to put it back on top of our pump. Again, when I did that, I used a hair dryer. I used low temperature, and I let it blow in there for a good 10 minutes. And just make sure every part of that board is dry before you put it back in there. It's kind of hard for me the way I've got my pump plumbed in there to show you how to do this with this wiring harness again. If you look on there, it's just a little clip here. You push the clip, plug it in. They don't give you any slack. zip tie. I'm not putting the zip tie back on. You can if you want to, but I don't have enough room in there to get in there hardly as it is. I'll tighten my 4 screws back up into a cross pattern. Make sure that's tight. Not tight enough, I break it. And then once I do that, I'm gonna turn my power back on. And hopefully, if you got lucky like I did, you got yours fixed. So once the power's back on, you should see your numbers flashing and you should be good to go.